Good evening. I'm Dr. George Ray, and this is the University of Maryland course on leading global virtual teams. And this evening we will investigate the impact of distributed knowledge on organizations. Knowledge is really the key to modern business. The world is controlled by knowledge. It's the ubiquitous and vital agent that is used to frame every field of endeavor. For example, in biology, genes encapsulate information. DNA is an error-correcting digital code. There is a science of conveyance and a science of information for every field of study. In biology, the science of conveyance is the structural elements such as the cell and the mitochondria and so on. The science of information is the DNA and the information encapsulated in the DNA and how that is used to synthesize proteins or determine physical characteristics. Economists are now aware that their discipline is an information science as well. Money is no longer a physical medium, it is electronic bits. The physicist John Archibald Wheeler summarizes the centrality of information to all fields, both academic and business. He proposes that the world is a participatory knowledge system. An important aspect of knowledge is that it is distributed. Friedrich Hayek is the founder of the Austrian School of Economics, and his critique of the Marxist, the neoclassical, and the Keynesian schools was their assumption that all knowledge was held by central decision makers, and that there was an instantaneous dissemination of information about changes throughout the system. Of course, these assumptions are unrealistic. Competitive organizations now realize the need to tap into distributed knowledge. Virtual teams are a strategy to accomplish this. If all knowledge was centrally located, there would be no need for virtual teams. The luminaries would gather and get the job done. On the other hand, if knowledge is distributed, then virtual teams are required, and they must be formed with the requisite variety of knowledge to accomplish the mission regardless of where that knowledge resides. There's a Harvard Business Review slide here that I linked to, and it shows that there's going to be a rapid growth in people working on virtual teams. They predict that in the near future there'll be 1.3 billion people who will be working on virtual teams. Okay, go back to our slides. So information becomes knowledge by understanding it and being able to place it in a conceptual framework. And that's the role of experts. Increasingly, expertise is decentralized around the world, even within a single company. Globalization has magnified the distributed nature of knowledge. To make competent decisions, we must know about the area of operations, which is now individual markets around the world. Furthermore, expertise and technical know-how are increasingly no longer in the United States, but we must reach to experts who are in other countries. The world is changing from a labor-based economy to a knowledge-based economy. So, how are organizations adapting to the increase in the importance of knowledge and its distributed nature? Fundamental changes with respect to information technology innovations, globalization, deregulation, increasing emphasis on maximizing shareholder value, changes in the composition of the labor force have arguably made the need to access relevant knowledge even more pressing. This is the start of the knowledge economy. So today, knowledge is the major and growing part of value added to production, services, and operations. The changing nature of work, with organizational emphasis on knowledge and the need to discover and use the necessary knowledge, has led to the knowledge economy. The nature of knowledge in the workplace is changing corporate organization and the way corporations are managed. Strategic management drives most of the projects in an organization. The purpose of these projects is to take advantage of opportunities to improve operations or to enter new areas or markets. Strategy is the deliberate action to transform sensed opportunities into desired results. In a repetitive manner, search activity scans environments for information. They obtain understanding from that information. The organization formulates action to benefit itself, and then it implements the strategy through an exchange of actions with the environments. There are two main aspects of effective strategy making: creativity for innovation and administration to convert that creativity into a successful activity. Strategic management, these acts of strategic management require knowledge to determine what opportunities exist and knowledge on how to exploit these opportunities. Strategic management now emphasizes innovation as an essential aspect for achieving success. Drucker finds that innovation is essential in every company and recommends that innovation be directly aligned with corporate strategy. Innovation is fueled by creative knowledge. Corporations fail to deliver results in today's challenging environment because of atrophied innovation. Why do we need innovation? Well, we have two basic strategy choices. We can improve our operational efficiency, or we can differentiate ourselves from the current competition with new features or attributes. The purpose of either of these strategic choices is to become more competitive in our environment. It is critical in the modern global economy because technology, especially improvements in the microcosm and telecosm, as George Gilder calls them, have been applied to both administrative and manufacturing processes to raise productivity. Furthermore, emerging countries have become industrialized and now provide a glut of product and service offerings. It's estimated that China alone could meet the entire world's demand for goods and services. To survive, an organization must innovate to distinguish its product or service from others, or to improve its processes to become even more efficient and competitive than China. These are the two generic strategies: become efficient or provide more relevant and interesting functionality. Porter described them as becoming more cost competitive or differentiating a product or service from those who are more cost competitive. Both require innovation, becoming more efficient and differentiating. As we shall see shortly, according to Ashby's law of requisite variety, this requires leveraging distributed knowledge. We come back to Hayek's premise that relevant knowledge is never co-located conveniently in one place, but is distributed. And therefore, there is a need for virtual teams. Virtual teams are more innovative because they tap into the creative knowledge and energy that is distributed both within and without the organization. Organizations are adapting a network organizational structure rather than a hierarchical. It facilitates organizational flexibility. The old corporate hierarchy and its rigid processes and chain of command opposes change. It was designed to eliminate anomalies, standardize processes, solve short-term problems, and achieve stopwatch efficiency within the current mode of operating. In a sense, the crowning accomplishment of the hierarchy and its management processes is the enterprise on autopilot. Everyone is ideally situated as a cog whirring on a steady, unthinking, and predictable machine. Thus, the hierarchy ignores new opportunities that require transformation because these opportunities don't align with its core purpose of maintenance and optimization. In contrast, a network form of organization is more flexible and less authoritative. Because of the growing importance of being able to access knowledge from multiple sources, knowledge-based networks increasingly become the relevant dimension for understanding the organization of economic activities. Such networks may even cut across the legal boundaries of a firm. Virtual teams may include people who are external to the organization. So the impact of this knowledge economy on corporations are many, including new organizational structures, more networked and less hierarchical, consequent flattening of internal organization and the rise of autonomy, increased emphasis on innovation and technical advancement, and changing demand for labor skills. Again, the nature of knowledge in the workplace is changing corporate organization and the way corporations are managed. Coping with the problem posed by Hayek's distributed knowledge has become a fundamental problem confronted by managers of organizations. Their challenge today is the discovery and use of knowledge, which is not known by a single agent, but is instead distributed in the environment. Firms are distributed knowledge systems. They don't have a mastermind who has the requisite knowledge to conduct central planning and be successful. Furthermore, the knowledge an organization needs is continually emerging. As Hayek put it, the problem of effectively allocating resources is a problem of knowledge not given to anyone in its totality. Managers must leverage distributed knowledge for sense-making of the environment and for coordination, the small adjustments to processes to handle changes in that environment. Rigid processes cannot be easily changed to reflect changes in the environment. Moreover, if a single perspective is applied to the multifaceted information gained from sense-making, then only a small portion of that information will be recognized and processed. The rest will remain a puzzle, untouched and having no value to the organization. Resolutions to problems, innovation, and coordination are better accomplished through collaboration. With a team, not only is different information collected and different perspectives applied to understanding, but also collaborative interactions are mutually stimulating. Collaboration does not occur naturally, but is culturally induced by the team. Collaboration, especially distributed collaboration, is a new concept to the hierarchically organized companies of today. The centralized hierarchy of authority presumes a fixed decision-making process. It offers efficiency when the environment is stable and the nature of the decisions stay within a boundary that can be managed by the hierarchy. Worlds that are momentarily stable and orderly are deceptive because they create a fallacy of linear expectations. The belief that the world will go on like it has and we don't have to worry about it. This results in an ambivalence that reinforces the presumption that our current organization is durable and lasting. The old-time confidence in a hierarchical, centralized organization structure was a great danger during the time of great environmental change that we have encountered. When the change exceeds the competence of the hierarchy to manage, centralized arrangements become a cruel trap. The nature and specialized knowledge in the system is bewildered by ambiguous changes in the environment, and that often results in organizational extinction. Companies such as DEC, Sun, Compaq, almost IBM, and even countries like the Soviet Union developed that attitude, that fallacy of linear expectations. The following are some critical rules in organizing theory. The first is the law of requisite variety. This law states that the variety of knowledge in a system must be as great as the variety of circumstance that is in the environment that the system is attempting or designed to influence. Another rule is that adaptation precludes adaptability. In other words, when you rigidly adapt to become efficient in one environment, that adaptation usually presumes a rigid structure for knowledge. You only deal with the knowledge the old process needs to execute. On the other hand, a network decentralized decision-making system may be less efficient, but it is more adaptable in fluid situations. The situation in the world today is fluid. So, let's take a look at what some leading Austrians think. Hayek says that the knowledge of circumstances of which we must make use never exists in concentrated or integrated form, but solely as the dispersed bits of incomplete and contradictory knowledge which all the separate individuals possess. So, organizations must deal with distributed knowledge which must be discovered, rationalized, and then put to use. As we will see in this course, virtual teams have the capability of accomplishing this and are a critical part of the knowledge economy. As Foss puts it, numerous writers have argued that tasks and activities in the knowledge economy need to be coordinated in a manner that is very different from the management of traditional manufacturing activities. The boundaries of firms, as well as their internal organization, are transforming to become more decentralized, to empower employees, and to interact with external knowledge assets. Earlier, we noted that firms are distributed knowledge systems. Foss extends that to say that they are systems of complementary elements that are not always co-located. So one more Austrian view is from Cowan and Parker, and they put it like this, several points. First point is organizations are adopting new forms of decentralization to cope with the instability, uncertainty, and pace of change in the marketplace. In cluster or network working, employees of undifferentiated rank may operate temporarily on a certain task or tasks in teams. The clusters are largely autonomous and engage in decentralized decision-making and planning. They are conducive to individual initiative, intrapreneurship, and faster decision-making. They facilitate organizational flexibility. We are seeing the rise of global virtual teams. When organizations increasingly rely on knowledge networks, they wear down the authority of the formal hierarchy. Authority shifts and is shared by the knowledge experts needed for a particular initiative. The old order of hierarchical authority and giving orders through a chain of command is becoming increasingly irrelevant. With firms increasingly source diverse, the complex knowledge of production and operations is becoming increasingly dispersed, as indicated by Hayek, and this is happening on a global scale. Hayek's distributed knowledge problem has become the principal problem modern management must solve. Hayek's distributed knowledge and the rising importance of knowledge undermine the transactional management monitoring mechanisms and incentives. Minkler observes that if a worker knows more than the manager, the organization values the worker more than the manager attempting to monitor and control them. The coordination of authority, norms, and teams is changing, recombining into what Foss calls new organizational forms. These new organizational forms are replacing formally defined authority hierarchies. In summary, the distributed nature of knowledge and its rising importance to modern firms has given rise to virtual teams as a normal organizational form. Cowan and Parker note that firms are adapting new forms of organization, such as virtual teams, to cope with the instability, uncertainty, and pace of environmental change. Townsend, DeMare, and Hendrickson note that virtual teams are replacing traditional co-located teams so that organizations can succeed in the increasingly complex and dynamic knowledge activities. This is changing the corporate landscape. So where does Hayek's knowledge problem lead us? Well, a power rule governs knowledge in an organization. A small number of staff have and apply disproportionate amounts of knowledge. It is important for organizational leaders to leverage the value of knowledge in the organization and to know where it resides. The modern business world now places more value on knowledge than on mass labor. To have a flexible workforce that can make informed decisions is essential because of the intense competition resulting from globalization and information technology. Another more current thinker that is proposing a case for decentralization is George Gilder. And he looks at cycles in history and says that the technology of a particular age influences whether that age is characterized by centralized organizations or decentralized organizations. And he gives the gunpowder revolution of the 1500s as an example of a technology revolution that favored centralized organizations, and that countries and corporations that recognized that early, such as England, had a great advantage over everyone else. George Gilder's opinion today is that the technologies in the microcosm and the telecosm are favoring decentralization, and he's predicting the breakup of large, inflexible, centralized organizations, even though they may be efficient. The microcosm is the application of computer technology to both personal and work processes. And the telecosm is likewise the application of telecommunications and data communications technologies to personal and work processes. And in both cases, these technologies, argued by George Gilder, favor the decentralizing, flexible, adaptable network structure of organization. Okay, let's take a 5-minute break, and when we come back, we'll resume with tonight's lecture.